U.S. Comedy Arts Festival tribute to Monty Python.
What a lovely day.
Starring John Cleese,
Terry Gilliam, Eric Idle,
Gary Jones,
Michael Pylan,
and Ron Chapman.
and hosted by Robert Klein. Ladies and gentlemen, your host, Robert Klein.
Thank you very much. Back in 1973, I was getting ready to release my first comedy album, Child of the 50s, or was it 1873? And in the studio was this album. We were on the same label. It was called Now for Something Completely Different. I put on a cut, and it was completely incomprehensible to me. Then a few days later, there was a screening at a producer's house of a film called And Now for Something Completely Different. And I saw the parrot sketch, like you all did, and my heart fell to Monty Python. Well, it's not hard to like a bunch of middle-class guys, British men, who often dress as women and whose name translated in Japanese as the Gay Boys Dragon Show. The material hit on archetypes which time hasn't touched. And as a result, new generations of fans keep coming and coming, like my own 14-year-old son. A case in point is this from a young fan who recently wrote to the web page, which is called Python Line. I just saw The Holy Grail by Monty Python. I think it is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen since The Breakfast Club. I want to see some of the other movies, and I also heard that there was a TV show. Is this true? I really liked the movie, even though it was hard to tell what they were saying with their thick Australian accent. Was there ever a TV show? Not like this, there wasn't.
The BBC would like to announce that the next scene is not considered suitable for family viewing. There are also scenes of naked women with floppy breasts. Also, at one point, you can see a pair of buttocks. And there's another bit where I'll swear you can see everything. But my friend says it's just the way he's holding the spear.
And now for something completely different.
Double up mill.
Oh, no.
One on Crossbeam's gone out of school on Tittle.
But what on earth does that mean?
I don't know. Mr. Wentworth just told me to come in here and say that there was trouble at the mill, that's all. I didn't expect a kind of Spanish Inquisition.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Our chief weapon is surprise. Surprise and fear. Fear and surprise. Our two weapons are fear and surprise. And ruthless efficiency. Our three weapons are fear and surprise and ruthless efficiency and an almost fanatical devotion to the Pope. Our four. No.
So on and so on and so on. And now?
Rumpeltweezer ran the Dinky Tinky shop. In the foot of the magic oak tree, by the wobbly dum-dum bush, in the shade of the magic glade, down in Dingley Dell. Here he sold contraceptives and...
My hovercraft is full of eels. My hovercraft is full of eels.
Matches. Huh?
Yeah. Do you want to come back to my place? Bouncy.
I understand that you want to marry my daughter.
That's right, yeah.
Well, I'm
I'm sure you'll know what I mean, Mr.
Shabby? Ken Shabby.
Mr. Shabby. What job do you do?
Clean out public lavatories.
Is there a promotion involved?
Oh, yeah. After 5 years, they give me a brush.
I can talk. I'm Minister for Overseas Development. Could I have a quick cup of tea, please? I have an important statement on Rhodesia to make in the Commons at 6.
Ooh, Mrs. Megabyte has exploded!
And then? Wife interested in, photographs, eh? I don't mean photographs. He asked him knowingly.
Photography?
Yes. Nudge, nudge, snap, snap, grin, grin, wink, wink, say no more.
Holiday snaps?
Could be taken on a holiday, could be, yes. Swimming costumes, you know what I mean? Candid photography, you know what I mean? Nudge, nudge.
No, we don't have a camera.
Oh, still. Whoa, eh? Whoa, eh?
Look, are you insinuating something?
Oh, yes.
Well?
Well, I mean, you're a man of the world, aren't you? I mean, you've been there, haven't you? I mean, you've been around. Eh?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, you've done it. I mean, like, you know, you slept with a lady.
Yes.
What's it like?
I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. I sleep all night, I work all day.
He's a lumberjack and he's okay. He sleeps all night and he works all day.
I cut down trees, I skip and jump. I like to press wildflowers. I put on women's clothing and hang around in bars.
He cuts down trees, he skips and jumps. He likes to press wildflowers. He puts on women's clothing and hangs around in bars. He's a lumberjack and he's okay. He sleeps all night and he works all day.
I cut down trees, I wear high heels, suspenders and a bra. I wish I'd been a girlie, just like my dear mama. I cut down trees, wear high heels, suspenders and a bra. I wish I'd been a girlie, just like my dear mama.
The almost full Monty. Wonderful to have you all here, and of course some of them may know, but basically how did the group get together?
Well, versions.
I think I met John first. I was on a train. I met John, and Mike was collecting the tickets. I think you were. And Terry and Eric were doing a bank robbery down there. It was a sort of great train robbery time.
Are you in the group? Are you?
Sorry, my name's Eddie.
He's not in the group. Eddie Izzard. Are you in the group? I think you're not in this show. Okay, please. You're not in the group. You're not in the group. Sorry, you're not in the group. I apologise, everybody. I don't know how this happened. Get your own show. Go to your own
I can do the...
Get your own jokes.
Strange women lying about in pots.
I'm so sorry. The security around here is ragged, you know.
You were a fool for a minute.
So, let me ask you this. How did you all get together?
Well, I remember that John had run me. I remember sort of my doing this show. And then we did this thing.
I noticed a tendency for this program to get rather silly. Now, I do my best to keep things moving along, but I'm not having things getting silly.
You were 6, and of course, Graham Chapman passed away in 1989. He would have loved this. He would have
But
done.
he's dead.
He is no more. He is. Stone dead. He is no more?
Yeah.
Ceased to be.
Stone fucking dead.
That's his chair there.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy.
You've got a nice chair for him, but he won't.
I'm sorry that I never met the man, and I wish he could be here because he would love this.
Well, he is here. Actually, I brought him.
Yeah. You
from
brought
London.
him?
Yes. Shall we have him on?
Please.
Yeah. Graham Chapman.
Graham Chapman. Keep quiet.
Is it true that the BBC wanted Flying Circus in the title? And
The BBC had to call it something on their schedule, so they started calling it by the name of the executive who was in charge. He was Barry Took, and they called it Barry Took's Flying Circus. And we rather liked Flying Circus, and then we had to decide whose it was. And then we thought it might be Gwen Dibley's, because who was she?
Well, I just found my mother-in-law's one quiet weekend, and she was reading a magazine of the Towns Women's Guild, the sort of people who do good work in the counties of England. And in each of these places, they had embroidery classes and flower arranging and all that. Flower arranging! And they also had a little bit where it said, accompanied by Gwen Dibley on the piano. The name Gwen Dibley sort of intrigued me, and I thought, how nice it would be to give someone their own series without them knowing. So they would... Only when the listings came out for that weekend, the family would say, Mum, you've got the series on television.
The thing was, it was called, the very first scripts that went into the BBC were called Bun, Wacket, Buzzard, Stubble and Boot, which was a football team. It was a frontline football team that John and Graham had. And we were calling it Bun, Wacket, Buzzard, Stubble and Boot right up to the day before the Radio Times had to go to press. And the BBC rang us up and said, no, come on, you've got to call it, we can't call it this, you've got to call it something sensible. This is stupid, you know. So we're all sitting there in John's place, I think, as far as I remember, and we said, oh, it's got to be somebody's Flying Circus. And I think John said, well, how about something slimy and slithery, sort of like...
But untrustworthy, typical show business agent. So we all said, Python, Python, Python. And then somebody else shouted out Monty, which made us laugh, because Monty to us means Lord Montgomery, our great general in the Second World War.
I see. I thought it was Monty Sunshine, the jazz music. But it was a great moment.
I rushed home to my brother and said, we've got a title at last. It's going to be Monty Python's Flying Circus. And he said, it'll never work. Forget it.
Monty Python's Flying Circus!
did they not pay attention for a while? You got away with a lot early on.
There was a period when there was a lot of freedom.
No one kept an eye on us at all. We were paid very little. We just worked out of a basement, got all our gear together, went out around the country filming these ridiculous things, and nobody bothered at all until we had the masturbation problem. When we said... Sorry, I had the masturbation problem. Now, we did a sketch about the summarised Proust competition in which someone gave their hobbies. They were asked their hobbies. And he said, strangling animals, golf and masturbating. Terrific roar of laughter from the audience. And the BBC came to us, the heads of the BBC had a look at this and said, you cannot have masturbating. We cannot put masturbating out on television. And we fought them. We went and had this wonderful meeting at the BBC, the six of us sitting around with Graham, trying to reason with Duncan Wood, his name was, about the word, using the word masturbating.
So
and I remember Terry was
what's wrong with masturbating? Yeah. I mean, you masturbate, don't you, Duncan? Well,
behind his desk and all that. Anyway, in the end, they won, and we had to cut out masturbating. So out came the sketch, and it says, strangling animals, golf, pause, huge laugh. Enormous laugh at the word golf. I mean, just ridiculous.
What are your hobbies outside summarising? Well, strangling animals, golf, and...
It's also this thought, you know, strangling animals is all right, but masturbating isn't, is it?
Now, with all the confidence, and so many years later, about 25 or so, John, it wasn't, you weren't completely confident right off the bat, were you?
Well, I had a very strange experience on our stage tour. I'm sure they all remember it differently, but I remember we started off in Brighton, we worked our way to the Midlands, and we were doing a show in Bristol, and we were doing a matinee there, and for some extraordinary reason, the audience just didn't laugh. And after about...
Oh my God!
Oh, dear.
So after about 4 steps... of this Bristol matinee audience not laughing at something that people had been falling around at for 2 weeks, I realised that they were right and that it wasn't funny, and I'm being perfectly serious. If people aren't laughing, it isn't funny. And then the next house came in the evening, and they started to laugh again in all the right places, and the show became funny again. But I mean, comedy's incredibly brittle, and if something goes wrong with the atmosphere, you're dead.
I mean, the first recording, I remember the reaction being very, very quiet, because the BBC have a sort of audience selection unit, and as they didn't know what Monty Python was going to be like, they didn't know which audience to get for it, so we had an audience of old-age pensioners.
They thought it was a circus. They came in and they said there's no animals, you know. This is like... So, you know where the little old ladies look like that? That's why we put them in, because that was like our first audience.
You call them pepper pots, right?
Yeah.
Now, you broke it up into groups. You mostly wrote in various groups. They were Terry Jones and Michael, right? You had...
Yeah, we wrote together.
That's right, yeah.
I wrote with
you
Graham.
and Graham often wrote together. You often wrote alone. And Terry was alone in his attic, right? Now, what is your... I mean, you're the most mysterious Python in a way, because you were off making the... And the wonderful foot and the use of all these artworks. What was it like? Were you more or less alone when they were rehearsing this?
I mean, in some ways, I was the most free, because they had to submit their material to the group. And everybody voted on whether it went into the good pile, the medium pile, or the shit pile. And my stuff was never comprehensible to them, and often not to me either. And it's and I would try to explain it to them what I was doing, and they would all just look like they're doing now.
I thought that
It's time for the cartoon.
But that's a key to what was one of the things that was completely different. Up to now, it seems that most television shows were cameras taking pictures of a proscenium stage.
I mean, one of the things we decided very early on was to get rid of punchlines, because before you would see wonderful... Peter Cook, Dudley Moore had a wonderful show, and they would do great characters. The sketch would go along, be fantastic, and then they would have to come to the punchline. And invariably, the punchline wasn't as good as the body of the sketch.
That's
so
right.
we solved it, you know, the Gordian knot, chop, get rid of punchlines.
This is the silliest sketch I've ever been in.
Shall we stop it?
You're all right.
I think one of the things we were trying to do with the show was to try to do something that was so unpredictable that it had no shape, and you could never say what the kind of humour was. And I think the fact that Pythonesque is now a word in the Oxford English Dictionary shows the extent to which we failed in this attempt.
There was one thing I really wanted to do at one point, was that the show would be going on, and we would slowly take the sound down in a sketch, and do it very slowly, so people all over England would then pick it up, turn the sound a little bit, and go back, and it'd go down a bit more. This would go on for about 5 minutes until it was at its maximum level, and then we'd make the biggest noise we could, and blow up every set in the nation. Well, they didn't let us do that.
The BBC has rules about these sort of things.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say the trouble now when I watch these shows is, you know, we did do some of these things really for the first time. And when you watch them now, you can't remember quite how you reacted to this completely fresh thing. You know, we've lost something. We can't see him again now in the way that the first audience did.
So that kind of killed the evening, didn't it?
Graham? I'll go. Sorry. Sorry about that.
Well, at least it gives us a chance to talk about John now, isn't it?
Yes.
Probably going to
Any
talk to one
questions
of his
about John or his personal
Come back,
life?
John.
He says he'll come on if we talk about sketches he's written. Okay, so let's talk about. Can you remember any, Eric?
No.
Argument. Argument. Argument was a very good sketch. An argument is a collective series of statements to establish a definite proposition.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. It isn't just contradiction.
Look, if I argue with you, I must take up a contrary position.
But it isn't just saying no, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. Argument's an intellectual process. Contradiction is just the automatic gainsaying of anything the other person says.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
Not at all.
No, look.
Thank you. Morning.
Johnny. Okay.
Such a little premature.
Imagine what it was like in writing sessions, can't you? No.
Just said how much we
Well, what was it like in writing sessions?
Oh, what was it like in writing?
Well, actually, I remember it was rather fun, because what used to happen is we would go away for 2 weeks, and they would write, and they would write, and I would write, and Terry would do sketches, and then we'd come together for 2 or 3 days, and we'd go to Terry's house, and we'd just start to read out the material. You take it in turns to read out the material. And sometimes it was absolutely hysterical. I mean, it was fun to hear the things done performed for the first time.
It was the best time of Python, I think, the reading out the sketches, because you'd start the sessions, you'd know, you're going to hear something that you'd never heard before, and it was going to make you really laugh. And
then the other thing that was very good, I thought, was that people are very good critics of each other's work. So they'd say, you know, that's really funny, that bit on page 2 to page 3, but then it goes off. And so what would happen sometimes would they say, well, why don't we know how to finish that? So the sketches would swap around. Or they say, well, why don't we just cut it there or bring in the Colonel? So there was a good deal of editing, which was very good, group editing.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's a great deal of honesty, and people's feelings were hurt. But the fact was, you could actually say, that's a piece of shit. You know, and nobody would really cry.
Is the benchmark really that it made you all laugh and you thought it was funny?
All.
That's
I
the way
think
it
it
should
be just about all.
Yeah. And I don't think that's happened since. I mean, 6 people, it was all about making 6 people laugh. That was the end of it. There were no producers, there were no executives, there were no market research people saying this is what the audience should be going for. It was 6 people.
We wish like a cool band. As you all know, the parrot sketch seems to be voted the most, the favorite. You know.
It's a wonderful sketch.
It is a wonderful sketch. And
Who wrote it, John? Who wrote that sketch, I wonder? Graham?
I think
it was Graham.
You wrote it. Did I write that one?
Well, it came from a mechanic, a fellow who fixed cars and who had an excuse.
He was a man I knew who I bought a car off, and every time he took the car back, whatever was wrong with it, he'd say, oh, it's all right. It's you know, he'd have an excuse for everything. The door's fallen off. Well, they do on these cars, they're new.
You have any trouble bringing it in?
The brake doesn't work. I've gone down the hill, smashed into the wall. All right, well, bring it in. Bring it in, I'll have a look at it. It's lunchtime at the moment.
And we'd done this sketch, and then for another show, which had not been seen by many people, and Graham and I had this odd feeling that there was something very funny here. If only we could find the right context for it. And we then decided pet shop. And would it be a dog or a parrot?
Hello, I wish to register a complaint. Hello, miss.
What do you mean, miss?
Oh, I'm sorry, I have a cold. I wish to make a complaint.
Sorry, we're closing for lunch.
Never mind that, my lad. I wish to complain about this parrot what I purchased not half an hour ago from this very boutique.
Oh, yes, the Norwegian blue. What's wrong with it?
I'll tell you what's wrong with it. It's dead, that's what's wrong with it.
No, it's resting, look.
Look, my lad, I know a dead parrot when I see one, and I'm looking at one right now.
No, it's not dead, it's resting.
Resting?
Yeah. Remarkable bird, the Norwegian blue. Beautiful plumage, isn't it?
The plumage don't enter into it. It's stone dead.
No, it's resting.
All right, then. If it's resting, I'll wake it up. Hello, Polly. I got a nice cuttlefish for you when you wake up, Polly Parrot.
There, it moved.
No, it didn't. That was you pushing the cage.
I did not.
Yes, you did. Hello, Polly. Polly. Polly Parrot, wake up. Polly. Now, that's what I call a dead parrot.
Somebody came up to me 2 weeks later and they said, can I ask you a question about that parrot sketch? And I said, sure. They said, it is about the Vietnam War, isn't it?
Didn't you do sort of a parody of this sketch as a testimony at Graham's funeral?
Yes, I just thought it was right. I mean, the great thing about being around Graham is he just adored bad taste.
Was he the house physician, incidentally, for the group?
He was the doctor. He was the medical man, yeah.
Glasses. Moustache. Handkerchief. I'm going to operate!
There's a question from the Python Line website that I'd like to ask. Warum haben Sie sich entschlossen, Fernsehfolgen in Deutsch zu produzieren?
Ja, vor 25 Jahren, wir haben 2 Sendungen gemacht für deutsches Fernsehen. Es war eine sehr, sehr angenehme Empfehlung.
Ja.
Jawohl.
Er kann auf diese Weise eine billige Lache bekommen.
Ja. Eine Meile auf dem Fledermäuse-Toten.
Ist ein Holzfäller und fühlt sich stark, er schläft des Nachts und hackt am Tag.
Ich fälle Bäume, ich hüpf und spring, steck Blumen in die Vase. Ich schlüpf in Frauenkleider und lümmler mich in Bas.
Er fällt die Bäume, er hüpft und springt, steckt Blumen in die Vase. Er schlüpft in Frauenkleider und lümmelt sich in Bars.
That's pretty obscure to the Americans. Can you explain that?
Well, the Germans came to us and they said, look, we don't have a sense of humor.
It's true.
But we understand you do. Will you come to Germany and write a comedy show for us? And they said, we'll take you on a writing recce. And nobody's ever heard of a writing recce. You know, it was like 10 days holiday in Bavaria. So we said, sure, we'll go. And we went to the airport and we flew to Munich, and they met us at the airport with huge steins of beer. And we were going there to write sketches for Germany, to do comedy sketches. And they took us from the airport straight to Dachau. This is a true story. And as we tried to get to Dachau, everybody kept denying they knew where it was. We'd stop and say, where's the camp? And they said, what camp? You know, they've not heard of this. And finally we got there, and it was just closing. And we drove up. They said, no, you cannot come in. And Graham said, tell them we're Jewish. God bless him, and they let us in. But we never understood what they were trying to do. Whether they were trying to say, well, let's do a comedy sketch about this, or whether they're saying, well, let's get this over with and up front. I mean, I still don't understand what the move was.
Very odd. But after that, we wrote a script, basically. They translated it into German, a 50-minute show. We actually went through the translation with them so that we understood as well as we possibly could what it all meant and which words to emphasize, and then we learned it off parrot fashion. And then we did it, and it was enormous fun.
So the TV show ends in '74, and you turn your attention. I feel like Ralph Edwards, and this is your life. And now
You just have to remind us.
you turn your attention to movies. Venture into the world of cinema. 4 very funny and very unique movies. Now for something completely different. Quest for the Holy Grail, Life of Brian, and The Meaning of Life.
None shall pass. What? None shall pass.
I have no quarrel with you, good Sir Knight, but I must cross this bridge.
Then you shall die.
I command you, as King of the Britons, to stand aside.
I move for no man.
So be it. Now stand legs off!
The Black Knight part of that is, I always felt, is a wonderful example of something which can appear so gross for a moment, but is really very funny because he's showing no pain.
Yeah.
You call it cartoon, don't you?
Yes. That's right. He shows no pain, and that's the key thing.
I mean, I remember seeing it at the opening in New York when the Vietnam War was still on, and the audience just went deadly still, because then violence was a very bad thing, and so any form of violence, even cartoon chopping off of limbs, just they went still. And I think it was about your second leg when that came off. They finally realized, oh, there's something funny going on here. You can laugh at violence in the right form.
It was an odd film. I mean, that was made for very little money. I think 210,000.
It's one of the virtues of having a budget, actually, because the reason we got to having the coconuts was because we couldn't afford horses. It was as simple as that.
There was an original sketch, wasn't there? We had people with coconuts. And so if we keep that all the way through, and everyone has a man with coconuts, yeah, we can save money.
Religion keeps on coming back in your subject.
Yes, do you know who's the only character in all the Python movies? It's a trick question. Does anybody know?
God?
God.
This is where we were going to have some incredibly hilarious footage from our film, The Life of Brian. Unfortunately, we are in litigation over it. However, we invite you to picture it in your minds now. And if you do, we promise not to sue you for violation of copyright.
Now, that must have caused quite a flurry. I know, I mean, the scene on the crucifixes.
But it's interesting in the States because it got banned in England and in Ireland, but in America, especially the Bible Belt, it just killed it dead. Nobody went. But in England, where in different towns it was banned, people organized bus parties and went from the towns and it was banned into the towns where you could see it.
But isn't your point, you all think that it actually was moral in its way?
Yeah, I would stand up and fight for that.
It was moral in its way, because actually what happened was it started off with a whole series of blasphemous jokes, you know, when we first started to write it. And after a bit, we went away and we did some research. We all read the books, and we read books on the books, and the Gospels, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we did research, and we came back and it's really very hard to make fun of Jesus Christ and what he says and what he is, because it's good moral philosophy. You cannot really abuse it. It isn't susceptible to laughter. So that sort of altered our thinking and where we come in. And we're very careful because we put him in twice. His birth is in there, and he's also giving the Sermon on the Mount. So what we did was, like, wouldn't it be funny if you had somebody who was living at the same time who was mistaken for the Messiah? That's the way we got into it. And we were very careful not
to put the Christ in there, and nobody even noticed that.
Well, the crucifix was slightly reminiscent.
Yeah, but people were crucified. He wasn't the only person crucified.
I know.
You know?
But the thing was, there was nothing funny about what Christ said, and what's funny really is the fact that Christ said all these really good things about love thy neighbour and everything, and then for the next 2,000 years, people are killing each other, and torturing each other because they can't quite decide how he said it. And I think I think the film is heretical, but it's not blasphemous.
Yes, it's a heresy.
I don't think it's a heresy. It's making fun of the way that people misunderstand the teaching.
Of course it's heretical, John, because it's attacking the church. And that has to be heretical.
No, it's not attacking the church necessarily. It's about people who cannot agree with each other.
No, he is not.
Why are we here? What's life all about? Is God really real? Or is there some doubt? Well, tonight we're going to sort it all out. For tonight, it's the meaning of life.
I remember Mike reading out the Mr. Creosote sketch, which was for the meaning of life. It's the sketch about the big fat man who's throwing up in the restaurant. And I think it was just after lunch, actually, when Mike read it out. And nobody thought it was funny in the group, and it just went to the bottom of the pile. And then about a month later, John rang me up and said, "Hello, little Blum, you know that Mr. Creosote sketch? I think it could be quite funny, I think what John had realised was that the waiter was the funniest part in it.
Finally, monsieur, a wafer thin mint. Oh, sir, it's only a tiny little thin one. The fuck off, I'm full. Oh, sir. It's only a wafer thin. Well, I couldn't eat another thing. I'm absolutely stuffed. Bugger all horse. Just one. Oh, just one. Just the one. Yeah. Voila. Bon appétit.
Moving on to the idea of the live performance, which is certainly, I can't think of any other television stars who made their reputation on television that go around doing their pieces live. And you toured England, you made some appearances here, and we have some footage of some of these, which you might very well not have seen.
We sing the faces and also the place to play till we're blown away.
Who would have thought 30 years ago we'd all be sitting here drinking Chateau de Chasselet, eh?
Them days we're glad to have the price of a cup of tea.
Aye, a cup of cold tea.
Without milk or sugar.
Or tea.
Used to live in this tiny old tumble-down house with great big holes in the roof.
House? You were lucky to live in a house.
We used to live in one room, all 26 of us, no furniture, half the floor was missing. We're all huddled together in one corner for fear of falling. We lived for 3 months in a rolled-up newspaper in a septic tank. We used to have to get up every morning at 6 o'clock and clean the newspaper, go to work down the mill, 14 hours a day, week in, week out, for 6pence a week. And when we got home, our dad would thrash us to sleep with his belt. Luxury. We used to have to get out of the lake at 3 o'clock in the morning, clean the lake, eat a handful of hot gravel, work 20 hours a day at mill for 2pence a month, come home and Dad would beat us around the head and neck with a broken bottle if we were lucky.
Well, of course, we had it tough. We used to have to get them out of the shoebox in the middle of the night and lick the road clean with our tongues. We had to eat half a handful of freezing cold gravel, work 24 hours a day at mill for 4pence every 6 years, and when we got home, our Dad would slice us in two with a bread knife.
Right. I had to get up in the morning at 10 o'clock at night, half an hour before I went to bed, eat a lump of cold poison, work 29 hours a day down mill and pay mill owner for permission to come to work, and when we got home, our Dad would kill us and dance about in our grave, singing Hallelujah. Are you try and tell the young people of today that, and they won't believe you. No, they won't.
Was it a revelation to you that when you did these live shows, they made you feel like rock stars, the crowds and all that?
Towards the end, the early ones were a bit ragged, really. In fact, I remember Graham, very eccentric day one. I was doing the Ken Shabby sketch. Yeah, we're going on the carpet, and Graham forgot to come on. And he had the first line, which was the man, so you want to marry my daughter? So we couldn't do anything till he came on, so I was sort of sitting there and I was sort of gobbing away, doing all this. And eventually, he never came on, you came on, dressed as an archbishop from the sketch, which was going to follow this one, and did the words perfectly. So it was a very bizarre sketch. Archbishop asking why he wanted his daughter's hand in marriage.
When we got to New York, I always remember this on the opening night, is that we went out to do the first sketch, I can't think what it was, and we did the first line, I got this roar. Oh, you know, we thought, oh, wonderful, you know, here we go. And we then played the rest of the sketch to complete silence. I mean, not, you know, and it was disorienting. Yet when we did the last line, and I came off and I said to the stagehand, what is going on? And he said, come. And he took me over and we looked through a little gauze thing in the curtain. And I looked at the audience and they were sitting there going, they knew the word.
They knew the word.
Well, they knew the word. We used to do the parrot sketch. They would occasionally shout the line. When John was leaving a rather skillful pregnant pause, someone would shout the line, you know, deceased, and John would get very, very, very angry.
It was probably the only show where you could dry and get a prompt from the audience.
Yeah. And Carol Cleveland was on that tour, on those tours, wasn't she?
Oh, good morning. Have you come to arrange a holiday, or would you like a blowjob?
The reason Carol was in the show is because we were playing all the female parts, because we like dressing up. And we had one sketch which was really about sex, and it doesn't work when you're playing it with a guy in drag. It has different
You never tried it, Eric. You never really, you know.
I tried it once. But, you know, once a philosopher, twice a pervert, isn't it? And so we had to get a real female to make the joke work. And then so, was it... Howard Davies brought in this girl, and then we liked her very much, and she was very funny, and we stuck with her.
And did you hide in her closet?
What?
No?
Well, I wasn't hiding. I'd gone to fetch something. I'd left an ads in there. It's the sort of thing you use for planing wood. You know? I'd left it in there, and I wanted to use it in the show I was doing after we finished our show, which I did a sort of carpentry show, which it was a sort of improv thing about carpentry, and I left it, and I thought, God, where is it? And it was in Carol's bloody cupboard in her room, and so sure. Anyway, I sneaked in, and I was there getting the ads when she woke up. And, The rest is history.
I hid in his room once. We got back from filming on Jersey, and I was in the first car, and they gave me the key, and I went up, and I said it wasn't for my room, it was for Michael's, which was next door. So I unlocked the door, and I went down and got my key, and I thought, I've got to take advantage of this. So I went into his room and put the light on, had a look around, and there was a dressing table in the corner. So I got behind that, and having turned the lights out, Michael came in.
As it was. It's my room, you know. There's nothing kinky about that. It's my room.
And he wandered over to the started doing all this. I could have reached through and touched him there. But he never saw me, and then he went over and started brushing his teeth. And then he started taking his clothes off, and he put his pajamas on, and he got into bed and put his glasses on and got the book and started to read. And I realized the joke was on me. But I didn't know what to do, and I sat there about 5 minutes, and then I just thought, well, I just got up and said, I'm awfully sorry, Margaret, but I have to go.
No, I remember what happened. No. Carol shouted, "Get out!"
Oh, that was it. That was it. We want to kind of wrap it up with a few more questions from the internet. This one is kind of interesting. I suppose it's saying what your favorite is, but it says, suppose all of you died suddenly, and God said every one of you could return to Earth, provided you return as only one of the many characters you played during the Monty Python lifetime. Who would you choose?
I choose the character I played, which was the front half of a pantomime horse. And I had to leap into a very high-powered sports car, Jaguar sports car, and drive it along Scottish roads dressed as a panto horse, just looking through this little slit underneath the throat, driving this thing at about 60 miles an hour. And sort of that I could get very fond of. You know, it's a new Olympic sport, I think. So.
I like Mr. Equator, because he'd just look at a woman and say, "Whoa, that's a nice pair, darling, isn't it?"
Your sex life, not of Gilliam.
I think I'd have to go and try to get the one I didn't get right, which at one point we were filming down in Dartmoor, and I had to come down as an American dialogue coach and say, "Okay."
Oh, yeah.
And I got down there, and I actually couldn't say "okay" in an American accent.
Please, Mr. Salad, there isn't much time. Where is Neutron?
Okay, give me another meatball and I'll tell you.
Completely blew it.
Because I think the flaw about this whole question is it assumes you'd want to come back down to earth. Really.
Yes.
Well, I suppose I'd be the lady who sells spam, 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 spam.
Spam, 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 baked beans, spam, 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 and spam. Oh, lobster thermidor, crevettes with Mornay sauce, garnished with truffle pate, brandy, fried and pot and spam. I don't like spam!
Yeah, I think I'd like to be a philosopher called Bruce, actually, because they're the most fun. You know, they could say all sorts of awful things like the whole bloody audience, you know, all the adults are on drugs and all the kids are on roller skates. Except I got that wrong, didn't I? I'll come in again.
They're a typical Hollywood audience. All the kids are on drugs and all the adults are on roller skates.
The number one question from the internet, and there were many, was when are we going to see another movie, and what does the future hold? Well, what is all this clamor for seeing Python after all these years do something together again? How does it affect you?
Well, we actually have rather a dramatic announcement to make, actually, tonight.
Because we had a meeting here today in Aspen, in an oxygen tent. And we decided that as next year is the 30th anniversary of Monty Python, we are going to do something. We're going to have tea.
It was wonderful seeing you all get together yesterday. You walked into the room. Some of you hadn't seen each other for a while. Seems you went into your old patterns of...
Once we got the names right.
Well, I think it's the first time we've all been... This is the first time we've all been on the stage together for 18 years.
18 years. Well, you know, we brought you together tonight not only to explore your wonderful work but also to honor you. Now, this is not a surprise to you, I know this. Oh. But the American Film Institute...
We were just going to do the surprise reaction.
Well, my motivation.
Well, you're supposed to go...
Do it again. Do the surprise thing.
Do it again.
We play surprise.
We brought you all together here not only to explore and remember the wonderful work, but to also honor you. The American Film Institute has chosen you to be this year's recipients of their prestigious Star Award. And here to present you with this award is the Chair Emeritus of the American Film Institute Third Decade Council, Kathleen Summers.
The American Film Institute Star Award honors the talents of those who have made a significant impact and have had an enduring influence on the television and motion picture industries. Past honorees include Albert Brooks, Steve Martin, and Rob Reiner. And tonight we are proud to honor the very unique and original talents of Monty Python.
On behalf of the group, I'd like to say a word of thanks. We Monty Pythons started together 29 years ago, and here we are receiving this award at last. And, you know, I often think how much it would have helped us when the show was struggling to find an audience if we'd received an award like this then. You know, but we didn't. In fact, we never did. Nothing. Not a fucking sausage. But you see, now we're all rich and famous. It's a different story, isn't it? I mean, you're all creaming your jeans trying to find ways to rub shoulders with us now. So drag us up to the backwoods of America to give us this bit of shit. Sucking us to away.
I'd just like to say thank you very much, deeply and sincerely and from the heart. There's a lot of love in this room, and we really appreciate it. You know, award means an awful lot to us. I've never had an award, and it's really the nicest thing that's ever happened to me. In fact, I'd like to sing. I'm so happy.
Actually, I've changed my mind. I'm very, very touched, and thank you.
Seriously, on behalf of you, we really are very grateful to you, and we'd like to say thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry.
Graham, he wants the award.
I think he wants the award. I think he's running out. No, he's not. No. He's still got it. He's still saying something. What?
We can hear you. What is it?
What do you want? You want to give us a message?
I want to answer a question. Knock twice for yes, once for no. About the show? About the movies?
About the movies.
Which one? Life of Brian? Meaning of life?
Meaning of life.
You want? Graham, do you want to tell us from the other side about the meaning of life?
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Graham Chapman, ex-Chapman, is going to tell us about the meaning of life.
It's a song, so it's...
Yeah, no, it's sit on my face and tell me that you isn't it awfully nice to have a penis? Isn't it? No, it's not that. I like Chinese. No. Oh, this way it is. Anyway, some things in life are bad. They can really make you mad. Other things just make you swear and curse. When you're chewing on life's gristle, that grum will give a whistle. And this'll help things turn out for the best. Hey, always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the light side of life. If life seems jolly rotten, there's something you forgot. And that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing.
when you're feeling in the dumps. Don't be silly chums, just burst your lips and whistle, that's the thing. And always look on the bright side of life. Come on. Always look on the right side of life.
Milk, sugar. There we are. Well, I don't know what the tea's like.
Well, life is quite absurd, and there's a final word. You must always face the curtain with a frown. Forget about your scene, give the audience the grin. Enjoy it, it's your chance anyhow. So always look on the bright side of life.
Let's do that one.
Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. Here we go. Always look on the bright side of life.
Thank you so much for watching.